Hey, we're back.
Okay, if you just joined us, we just spent an hour broadcasting live unlisted.
Yep.
But we've got one viewer already.
And honestly, how did that one viewer find you? I don't know. That could be kind of creepy. It's probably a YouTube engineer. Let's check out how these guys are doing.
Now we're up to 10. We've got 10 people watching.
Oh, see, suddenly we have an audience. So I know the whole time I'm thinking, wow, we've been on for an hour and not one soul came by.
Okay, so guys, this is a post-video show because we actually just did a live show for an hour. But when I set up this live stream, I made the mistake of setting it to unlisted. So even though I promoted it and told you guys about it, nobody got to see it, but it is public now. You can go ahead and watch it later. But I first of all want to thank Stop the FOMO for once again joining us on The Ordinary Filmmaker.
Hey, look, I see people.
We've got 16 people watching right now. I told you it didn't seem right. We only had one person watching the entire video.
I was thinking, wow, I knew you were small, but I didn't know you were that small. Well, you know what? This is a great segue for me to share with you my StreamYard live stream experience. So it took me quite a while to bring on this guest. His name is Bob O'Brien. He's a major industry analyst for a display supply chain. And I was really happy to have him on, right? So, and this was pre-recorded so that nothing could go wrong because I wanted to make sure that I edited it properly, put him in the best light because I was going to interview him about a lot of industry changes in the TV technology arena. And so we're on for maybe 90 minutes and it was great. I was rolling, I was hitting all my topics. And then I realized I forgot to click record. And then I was like, oh my God, Bob, I'm so sorry. He goes, I just saw the record button go on. Did you forget to click record? I go, I did. He's like, okay, well, let's do it again next week. And he was so gracious to come back on. This time I got it right. But, you know, you were unlisted. I forgot to click record because I was so excited to have him on. I just kept on rolling, not remembering that. Oh, I forgot to click record. 90 minutes into it, I click record. So it happens to all of us.
Oh, it does. And I told you at the end, I said, something just doesn't feel right.
I was like, maybe you're not paying them enough. You need more competitions.
Well, indeed. And since we've all got a live audience, I just want to remind you guys something. I did put out another video this morning. I've got a new contest. I don't know about you, but I still feel a little bit down with the weather and everything that's going on. And I thought just before we get into summer, I've got a brand new challenge for you. It's called Night Challenge. And I'm going to challenge you to go out there and Stop the FOMO. Please submit a video as well. It's got to be at least 30 seconds and no more than 3 minutes. And it's got to be shot at night. And what I want you to be able to do is just get out there, be creative. And I've got a really good prize for you. And this is a very different contest. So the winner will get a Weeble S gimbal from Xiaomi. And I won't be picking the winner. And if you watch that video, what you're going to see is Jordan Drake is going to be giving away the prize. He's going to be selecting the winner. So that's really exciting. So I just wanted to put that out there to let you guys know that contest is coming up. But yeah, thank you, Stop the FOMO, for this second half. We just had a brief intermission.
Well, this is why we do this, right? This is what the beta test, the pilot's all about, is working out the kinks.
Yeah, it is. And now Jesse, who attended or participated, see, I'm at a loss for words now because I'm just laughing inside my head. But Jesse has a question for me, and I'm going to also ask you the same question afterwards. Stop the FOMO. But the question is, am I going to do a night video myself just to show you how it's done? And the answer is no. I don't want to because I don't want to create a bias. I want I want whatever thought comes into your head. I want it to come from you. I don't want to be the source of your muse. Now, I have put out some videos where I've shot at night. I showed you guys in some of my videos behind the scenes where I shot my son. And we were doing Halloween in the backyard last October. So if you want to go take a look at that. And here's a couple of tips. I shot in log. So if you're shooting outside, most of the times you're going to want to shoot in a log profile unless you're shooting the moon. And trust me, 8-bit is more than enough. That thing is really bright. I usually set my ISO somewhere between 250 to 400, and that's with an f11 on the 800 millimeter. So really good question, Jesse. And Stop the FOMO, are you going to be submitting a video?
I was tempted to submit a video for your spring challenge, and we talked about this. Our days are so packed, right?
Yeah.
I'm behind on videos that I have advertisers and so forth that I have promised. And I was like, man, I want to do these things that are creative for me, and I haven't found time, right? Between what we do for YouTube, quote unquote, as a hobby, but really it is almost a full-time, part-time job, and our real job and our family commitments and so forth. It's hard to make time. I don't know if I can. And if I do, and I don't do it with the same effort like I would for something creative, I feel bad about myself, right? Because something like this does take time to just set up, vision, go back and edit, shoot it a couple more times, and I would like to, but I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, but it's a nice prize.
Oh yeah, what is the prize again?
So it's a Weeble S gimbal from Xiong, and you also get an ordinary filmmaker baseball cap. And 4 runner-ups will also get the ordinary filmmaker baseball cap.
Is it signed?
It could be. I don't know that I'm famous enough that people want me defacing their hats.
right. Their wife, like, what is this? They'll try to erase it.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, this is funny. And guys, here's
maybe get Jordan Drake to sign it.
Actually, that would be pretty cool. Now, I'm losing my voice here because we're already on the second hour. But look, guys, I've got an idea for you. Instead of me doing the AMA video the way I've been doing, the Ask Me Anything video that comes out every Saturday at the same time every week, here's what I'm thinking of doing. I'm going to be using this format. So I will still have it in the morning, Saturday. It won't be as early because I'm not getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I like you guys, but I don't like you that much. I like my sleep. But what I'm thinking of doing as we move into next week and the week after is I will have this video live, the Ask Me Anything video live at around an hour later, an hour and a half later. And we'll do it live. And I'll still solicit your questions. So I'll come prepared with a bunch of questions and answers. And we'll do it live. And if you guys bring up other questions, we can go into that. We can make it a little bit more dynamic. And I'm also willing to bring in some guests. Now, if Stop the FOMO has a question, he can certainly come in live and ask the question if he wants to. Maybe I can bring in Randall, and Randall wants to ask a question live, or he wants to be my guest. Maybe Jesse wants to be my guest, right? So we can try different things. We can make this much more of the ordinary filmmaker, more interactive.
I love interactive. Share it with your regulars, right? The live stream broadcast link, and people come and go as they please. There'll be like a bar. They walk in, demand a drink, and leave. Sure.
Yeah, that'll be really good. Now, let's talk a little bit about our sets, because I know a lot of people are asking me what my set is like. And, if there's a vote for it, I'll take people downstairs live and show them my set. But tell me about not the set that you're using right now, but your studio, lights, cameras.
Absolutely.
Let's take us down that path.
Now, what I have now, or the genesis to get to where I am now?
I like the way you just, let's do the segue. So
I started off very much like you, right? Used gear, Sony a6400 with a 24 millimeter equivalent lens, because I did a lot of research ahead of time. It wasn't like, you know what? I want the Sony a6400. It was at least 50 videos worth of binging on various channels, what camera to buy. And this was probably 2 years ago. So like yourself, I started in 2019. But before I bought anything, I just spent at least a month watching so many videos to find out what's the consensus camera. And it was the Sony a6400 as the best YouTube starter camera for many reasons. So I picked that up. And so my first gear was the Sony a6400 with a semi-wide angle lens on an El Cheapo Amazon tripod with a giant ring lamp. Everything was like maybe $1,200 all in, and it was terrible. If you watch my early videos, I was dingy, lighting was off, right? It was very dark. And so I added more ring lamps. And then 3 months into it, I had like 4 ring lamps. Like, oh, this is insane. So my first biggest upgrade was to get a better lamp. And then my tripod started falling apart. And that's when I started following you, because I needed to upgrade my camera. So I had the A6400 for about a year. And then into 2020, I realized what the weaknesses were. I needed better dynamic range. I needed better resolution. I was ready for a new camera. And I didn't know what to shop for, because at this point, I knew what I wanted, right? And so I started asking a lot of questions on your channel. And so today, I have the Sony Alpha 1 with a 24 millimeter G Master lens on a Manfrotto tripod. I have 2 of those, one for my TV reviews and one for my talking head. And the reason I have 2 is I used to carry one tripod back and forth. And the time it took to readjust it for the height and back again, I was like, you know what? Even though it's expensive to get a second one, I'm easily saving an hour per day setting up the height and everything. So now I just click it on and off. So I have 2 tripods, and all my lights have been replaced by dedicated key light that has those shaders that's shaped either vertically or, the diffusers. I have 2 of those, and I think this will be the set I'll be using for the perceivable future. So this setup is obviously incredibly expensive, right? You have the 8K camera, which I use 8K all the time because I need to punch in on my reviews. So
we don't need 8K. People say you don't need 8K. No one uses 8K.
Right.
You can't be all the time.
And so this is a use case. That's why, you saw me asking, what's this guy always asking about 8K? My reviews, I capture 4 TVs. So I have a wide angle lens capturing 4 TVs side to side, right, on my 24 millimeter. And when I crop in, you have to envision that I'm cropping into 4 smaller TVs now that I have to blow up. And so literally I'm getting 4K resolution on these TVs that I've captured in 8K. And that's why I need to capture. When I did it with 4K, I blew it up. I ended up with like maybe 720p, and you could see it. You could see the pixels on those TVs when I was doing video editing. I was like, you know what? I need a better resolution camera. But what's better than 4K? Well, 8K cameras started being released. I got the R5 initially, and it did not fit my Sony workflow at all. I did not know how to color grade it. It was a nightmare. It took me way too long to get the log right. And overheating was the early issue. So I returned it. With the Alpha 1, I have no 8K overheating issues, but I think I've mentioned this to you. I had some 4K overheating issues on 24p using an external recorder, and I shoot like 2 hours at a time for my talking head bits. But maybe it's because I did not toggle on temperature, overheat tolerance, whatever. So I'm going to try playing with that. But you're right. It was quite surprising that using a dummy battery and an external recorder and recording in 4K 24 at its highest setting, I had an overheat shutoff after maybe 90 minutes of recording. So that's something I didn't expect. But again, I didn't toggle on the heat tolerance. So I'll try that and see if it gets any better. But that's where I am right now with my equipment.
Yep. And you know what? I think what we're seeing is if you're going to be producing 4K content in cameras this size, and this is the R5. So in a camera this size, whether it's got a Sony label on it, Panasonic, it doesn't really matter. If you don't have any active cooling, then you can expect that you're probably going to have some issues with overheat. Now, there are ways to mitigate that. And let me take you for a walk down to my studio, and I'll explain that while showing, because I've had so many people ask me to see how professional my studio looks, and it's anything but that, but that's the illusion of video. So let's take a walk downstairs. And as I do that, guys, I haven't properly advertised this session. So if you want to go ahead and tweet out, let your friends know that we're doing a live stream, I'll take you downstairs. Now, one thing to let you know, I'm actually using a MacBook Air to do this. I'm using its speaker and its camera. I'm not hooking anything professional up to this. So this is kind of a test of the M1 to let you guys know how good it is. So let's see down here. I'll turn the light on so we'll get some. There, I look a little better now. So this is what might look a little bit familiar to you. This is the set area here. There's my desk. But if we pull back a little bit more, this is what you're actually going to see. This is an unfinished basement. I'm
That
about,
feels like a real studio to me.
yeah. Yeah. And the nice thing about an unfinished basement is I can actually run wires through the ceiling as well as gas lines. But let's show you my lighting. So right here, this is my fake plant. It's not a real plant because I got tired of carrying this big, heavy plant down all the time. You can see I got a white light on it there. And there's another one down below right here. And then on the bookshelf behind this lens in here, you'll see they're not on right now, but I have a bunch of these small Ulanzi lights. And these things are great. I've been using these for 6 months now. Where is it? Not used to this kind of view. They're $20 US, $19 US each. They're really good value, and I use them for all my videos. So this is one of those reviews where.
So is it like a key light for your face? Is that what you're using it for?
I'll show you. So this one is set to 69%.
Oh.
Right. So on the bookshelf.
Oh, I see what you did with that. All right. Cool.
And you know what? You can't do anything with your smartphone, but for $19.
Yeah.
You know, it's super cheap. And I've been using them every day for 6 months and they keep going. So I think they're great value. And whenever I do use sponsors or whenever I talk about products, I'm always honest. And I'll let you go because I use them day in and day out. If I have any problems, I'll let you guys know. All right. Now let's take a look at what I see. This is what I see here. There's two lights there, a ring light and a flat panel. And there's another Godox flat panel there. And you'll notice they're almost facing each other. This is so I don't get a lot of glare on myself. And this is the lighting system that I've been using since I almost started. Now, Peter Gregg helped me. He helped me turn the lights in a certain way and adjust things in a certain way. But that's my lighting setup. And now, you talked, Stop the FOMO, you talked about your tripod. Because when you asked me that, I did a bit of research, and this is my tripod right here. This is a Manfrotto 504X head, an aluminum tripod with a Glide Gear TMP 100 teleprompter on top. It's very amateur the way I'm showing it, but I love that. It's cool. So right here. And then the iPad sits in here. And I love this thing because it's so easy to set up and configure. And this is... Oh, one other thing here. So I'm just using, believe it or not, a whole bunch of boxes as my table. So when I do my Q&A, I'll put the laptop there and I'll control it. My wife says you should buy a table. I said, no, because I can't really be bothered to spend more money on something I might only use for 6 months or a year. And the boxes I can throw out when I'm done.
Oh, one of my suggestions to you would be, if you're considering something like a standing desk or whatever, these companies, and I'm going to use Flexi Spot because that's who they sponsored me one time. They'll send you a table if you do a review for them. So a lot of these equipment makers, if it's direct online, reach out to them and say, hey, I have a growing channel and my audience would love to see what you have. Can you send me one to do a review? They'll send it to you all day long. And that's how that's something I forgot to add, is a lot of my equipment from chairs to tables is sponsors in return for a video. Yeah, here, keep it. If you like it, let everyone know you like it. And if you have any criticisms, go ahead and share it, because on the one hand, they get free publicity, but then it's not really free because they're sending you the product and they don't want it back. I mean, can you imagine shipping, the cost of shipping back a giant standing table?
Well, I've had it once.
Yeah, right. And so, yeah, that's something to think about. Like you say, I don't want to buy this and that. So for those out there thinking of starting a channel, after a certain number of subscribers, a lot of your stuff could be, well, you're seeing right now with your Ninja sponsorship, right? But a lot more stuff, chairs, tables, lighting, you'll be surprised.
Well, what I noticed is when I hit 12,000 subscribers, people started paying attention to me, like big people. I don't know if you remember, but I had surgery, I had my appendix out last July. And the day I was getting discharged, Canon calls me on the phone and saying, hey, I've got an R5 for you. Would you like to have it for a few days? This was on a Wednesday. I was going to have it for the entire weekend. This was a week before it was coming out. And here I was, just some little guy in some small town, Canada. And Canon says, hey, we've got one for you. So I said, yes. Sony's paid attention to me now. They lent me the A7S III, which is great. Atomos, that's really huge. And even Apple called me a couple of weeks ago.
Really? You're big time.
Well, big time, no.
Maybe you should be starting to sign autographs.
I said, you know what I said to my wife? I said, when I hit 2 million views, I said, you realize I'm famous, right? And my wife, being my wife, just said, no, you're not. You're not famous. She says, if you're famous, where's all your money?
Well, that's the one misconception. You could be famous and be broke, right?
Yeah, John.
Notorious. Maybe you say you're notorious.
Yeah, there's a few of them. Okay, let's answer Jesse's questions. Any reason why you didn't go with single point lights or softboxes? Yes, there is. When I did this, I'd only been shooting for about 3 months, and I went to my local camera store, Henry's, and I said, look, this is what I need to do. I've got a low budget. And these Godox boxes, they're like 80, or not boxes, sorry. The Godox lights, they're $80 a panel. The ring light there was about $90. So I was able to do all my lighting for what, under $700, $600, $500, something like that. And getting good soft boxes, your multiples higher than that. So yes, I agree it's better to go with that. But let me ask you this, Jesse, what would you rather see me improve on my channel next? Lighting, more content, more presentation? And that's where I'm kind of focuses on, is giving a better presentation, getting better in front of the camera. You guys see me here. This is my personality. This is who I am. I can be Mr. Serious Pants if I need to be. If this is going to be a 60 minutes, tough questions, Mr. FOMO, you said your 87.1 overheats. Tell us more. But that's not me. And I'm trying to bring this personality, my true personality, more into my regular videos. Every now and then you might notice I'll drop a word like, instead of saying bouquet, I'll say Tony. It's not to make fun of Tony. It's just to see if you guys are listening, to drop in a little joke every now and then.
You know, this is a great question too, because I use softboxes. So I was telling you, I upgraded to point source lights. So I did get the newest Godoxes. Well, I got them off of Gerald Undun's review, where I'm like, oh, these are great. I need these powerful lights. So I have a 100 watt and a 150 watt pointing at 2 directions. And the reason I use a softbox, so this is my use case. So I have a large round one for my key light on me. And then to my left, I use the vertical one. And the reason why I use it, so I could direct the light to me without blowing up behind me. Because the way I shoot, if you watch my videos, I need the area behind me to be completely dark without going into post to make it darker. And that allows me to put up whatever I need to put up, images or whatever. So I love soft boxes for my use case a lot, because it allows me to direct lighting. And because I also use the grid, it limits the light to that exact area. Whereas if I just use the point light without the soft box, the whole room just lights up like an explosion. So absolutely, I love my soft boxes, especially the vertical one. It just limits it to just that, just me standing up, and that's all the light that I need. So yeah, if that's a use case, I cannot imagine not having a softbox for mine.
You know, I actually did have one for a short while. So, Falcon Eye sent me one, and I used it several times. It was for exterior too, which was great. But the problem I found is for me to set up and take down, I was becoming less and less the ordinary filmmaker. So I sold it and put the money back into the channel. I want to simplify the setup, and where I want to get to is, maybe if I have a single softbox that's shooting on me from the front and keep this LED light here, I do want to simplify things, but there's a level of complexity I'm trying to get away from.
Right. And you bring a good point. There's that balance between production quality. At what point are you overproduced, right? Because I know some people, they spend a lot of time on their background. They're constantly changing it because they just enjoy it. Maybe it's not even the destination. For me, I just enjoy fiddling and tweaking with what is out there in the market, and it may not raise perceivable production value. Like we were talking about, you sound great on your MacBook Air M1 with a built-in microphone. And here I have this expensive microphone, Electro Voice, right? Cardioid mic with a streaming mixing board, adding up to about $1,000 or more. And I sound identical to you. So, the headroom is high. I'm able to go in there and post and easily fix it on the fly. I can change my voice, adapt it to the room. But ultimately, I end up sounding within 2% of what you sound like.
So for the ordinary filmmaker, and this is where all those who watch me on a regular basis know this. This is not just for me to get some views. This is a way for you to realize if you do get a cheap MacBook Air, which is what I have, not the one with the fast GPU, but the M1 MacBook Air 7-core GPU with 8 gigabytes of RAM, you can edit 8K, you can edit 4K, and the microphones are truly as good as Apple says they are. I didn't believe it when they were showing me in their keynotes. I'm going like, oh, come on, really? But when me and Stop the FOMO last week did a dry run of this and we saw how well it worked, I was like, okay, if I don't have to spend $1,000 and I can also show you, you can easily do this too with, $1,200 laptop. It's $1,200 because I got the 512 gigabyte storage. Don't get 256. You're going to need 512. But let me ask you a question, Stop the FOMO. Nick Ann just was talking about 8K and mirrorless cameras. Why aren't you using a cinema camera? Let me ask you that, because
I would have if they came out with an FX Alpha 1. I would have been the first in line, but they didn't. The FX3 is ultimately still a 4K camera. And as you know, I do need the 8K. So this is the alternative. If I had a 4K camera, I would have to take literally 2 to 3 video shots of the same thing because I would get closer to each TV to get the resolution I need. And even then, it may not come to the same level resolution as an 8K stepped back 10 feet. So I'm shooting, let's say, 15 feet away from the TVs to capture all 4 TVs with an 8K, whereas before with the A7S III or the A6400, I'm maybe 7 feet away capturing 2 TVs at a time. And even then the resolution isn't as good. And in post, it's a nightmare trying to put 2, 3, 4 video tracks and editing it because it bogs down the computer. Whereas now with 8K, I put in one video and then I just blow each one up and then I process it. And then at the end, I convert it from 8K to 4K. And I'm like, wow, this looks like 4K. And I've saved so much time. So for me, it's a combination of saving time and video quality. So back to your question, cinema camera, there's no 8K cinema camera right now by anyone, right? Not even at the professional level. I mean, short of the Ursa Mini at 12K, right? But I was waiting for Blackmagic to come out with one, and they stopped at 6K. They never came out with an 8K yet. I'm sure they will, because it appears that you're making the announcements. More and more companies are getting access to these 8K sensors and making it cinema friendly.
Well, you might want to take a look at, I believe Blackmagic did come out with a 12K camera, but if you're used to Sony, it's not going to, I saw Jordan Drake did a video on it, and what you could see is that he wasn't exposed properly. And he had to really bring up the highlights and the shadows. And with the Sony, what the Sony's really great at doing is it can look at me just like the Apple, and it's making sure that I'm exposed properly, regardless of changing light conditions. And that's something that you have to be a lot more of a professional with Canon and others to properly measure that and keep that right. Whereas Sony, it does it really well. So yes, Blackmagic does have a 12K camera, but I'm not sure if you're going to be happy with the results from it.
Right. So that brings up another point is I'm so used to going manual on the A6400. So that's one of the things, the A6400, on the one hand, nothing is automated. I mean, it has some automation, but I had to manually learn everything. I had to manually expose log for my TVs and so forth. But then when I took that to the Alpha 1, I'm like, oh my gosh, they have face exposure tracking. I've never heard of such a thing where they expose for your face no matter what you're moving. I'm thinking, okay, this is like a whole other level of automation that I am just completely enjoying now when I'm doing my talking head videos. But because the A6400, I'm much better at manual exposure for my TVs, and now I can decide whether to let Sony do the exposure. Oh, and one thing about the Alpha 1 that I love so much is the variable shutter speed to eliminate the banding and flashing when you're capturing TVs or fluorescent lights. I use that so much for my use case. So yeah, I wish all cameras would have that variable shutter to the 0.1 degree. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to address Jesse one more time because a lot of us go through this. How do we set up? And we as YouTube presenters, we don't often give enough time for. So Jesse, there's a couple of things you can do. One is I'm more than happy to consult. In my description, it's $50 US, and we'll talk for an hour, any questions you want. The second option is these weekly AMA videos that I'm going to start doing live Saturday mornings now. You can ask a question there and I can go into detail. The other thing is, of course, you can ask comments along the way and maybe keep them focused. For example, address one on lighting, because the road to get to where I got, as you've seen through all my videos, I'm constantly changing. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lights in my studio right now. 10, that's too much. But 4 of them are these little soft boxes, which I swear by. It gives. You remember when I put the bookshelf here? Let's get a better view of this. Remember when I put the bookshelf in a little while ago? It looked better, but as soon as I put these lights in, it just popped. It separated me from the background. It looked better. You need to have some light behind you. You need to have some light in front of you. And I'll tell you, I bought the equipment, and almost any equipment can work, but it's that knowledge of knowing how to properly light yourself without having a greasy forehead or anything, without just, that's the skill. And I used somebody else to help me to angle the light. So I figured, well, it should hit me on a 45-degree angle. Well, no, not necessarily true. Maybe you have them facing directly at each other and then just tilted slightly towards you. It's, you know, it's like the question of how long is a rope? Well, it's as long as it needs to be, right? It's the same thing. What's the perfect lighting? Depends on your studio. Depends on where the light's coming through. I actually have a window right here, but I've taped it up so that way it doesn't come through my screen, right? So it's, you know, I'm more than happy to share my experience with you for free. I'm happy to do that. I also do the one-on-ones. It's just, maybe think of some questions you want to ask me over a series of videos, and I can do it free through the AMA. But, you know, if I can share my knowledge with you guys and get you producing better, this is a lot of fun. Yes, there are, like I said in my last video to Stop the FOMO, you know, how many times do I quit my channel? And what was my answer to Stop the FOMO?
Once a month, every month. And then your wife talks you down from a cliff.
It's something similar to that. So you guys know I put out a lot of videos. I have a day job, and what can happen sometimes, it might be a Thursday night, I'm ready for bed, I'm exhausted, and all of a sudden, boom, R3 comes out or something. I know I have to go out there and produce it. And then I say the next day, I said, I'm done with the channel, honey, I'm done. And so I don't produce anything for the weekend. Then on Monday, maybe I get an email from a vendor, or maybe I get a comment from one of you guys, or maybe news comes out and it's like, oh, wow, the 100mm f2.8 macro has got a 1.4 times magnification. Oh, I so want that. Hey, I got to tell you guys about this lens. And I'm back into it. And sometimes it's not that I'm quitting the channel, is I'm taking a step back, because mental health is very, very important. And I, you know, both me and Stop the FOMO, we have a regular day job. We have 2 day jobs. We have this and we have our day job.
This is what we're saying. It's actually 3 jobs, where you're a husband and a father. And we all know that's, hey, oh, there you go. I was thinking, did you freeze for a second? Yeah, so you have your day job, then you have this YouTube thing, which is more of our ability to express ourselves creatively, and then being a parent or a significant other. And oftentimes that, surprisingly, let's say, you know, your kid is sick or they need you, it really comes first, and it throws your entire production timeline off schedule. Not to mention, now you have to bring in your real job, and you have this guilt that, oh, I'm supposed to put up a video. It's been 3 days now. And that sense of guilt is oftentimes it results in a burnout, because there's only so much guilt or burdens you can handle before you're like, this is just too much. But if you look at it as a hobby, hey, you know what? I have time. It's less. There's less pressure to get it done on a timeline. It's that type A personality that oftentimes burns people out.
Yeah, and no doubt. Larry asked a question. So he's got the Canon R5, the RF 100 to 500 millimeter and 2x extender. That's nice. And an Angel Bearer CF Express card with 256 gigs, firmware 1.3.0. Took a photo and it locked up solid. Had to take a battery out to reboot. Any thoughts? The one thing I would do is you want to test your storage. Format it, see if it has any problems. Put in a different storage device, see if it happens. One thing I've noticed about the R5 is if you have storage that is less than 100%, and I had a pro-grade Cobalt 325 gig card, and whenever I would shoot with that after about 6 or 8 months, all of a sudden, the R5 would just completely freeze and hang, lock up completely. You could power it on and off, it'd be fine, but it would completely lock up. So I thought, okay, let's test it. I ran all the tests and it passed fine. But then I found out when I posted this, other people said, yeah, that happened to me too. Now, ProGrade did honor the warranty. They sent me a new one. But you really want to try to narrow down if there's a problem with that. Also contact Angel Bird Support. They're very good with their support. And try to narrow down if it's to the card itself. Because sometimes, you know, if the card is not 100%, the R5 doesn't behave nicely. It acts like my son when he's in a grumpy mood, just storming around, not happy. So yeah, the card might be starting to fail. I don't know, but I would definitely take that approach. Oh, we've got a comment from Stop the FOMO.
We do. Yeah, so let me share my 8K workflow with you all. I have your MacBook, the M1, and I try to work at home. I take it home and I bring home my DaVinci Resolve projects with 8K footage. And so what I realize I do is on the MacBook, what I end up doing is I do the bare minimum on 8K, just cutting it and cropping it, and then use that MacBook to run it all night to convert to 4K. It's like 6 hours. You know what? I'm going to bed. Let it render into 4K and then go to bed. But I've already cropped it out, right? So I use my MacBook at home to blow everything up and render it. And then when I come back the next day, I have it in 4K. And then I continue that at my workspace, which is the RTX 3090 with the Ryzen 3900X. Even on that computer, if I go straight 8K, I have to change my timeline down to 1080p or something, because it really does slow down. My first step is to crop in and pull it out and convert it to 4K ASAP, because I cannot work on an 8K timeline. It's just way too slow. And this allows me to, and I convert all my images into stills. That's another way. So of course, this doesn't work for everyone. If you need it to stay in video, but for me, because I do reviews, I can use a very short 2-second clip, and then the rest is stills. And that allows me to cut rendering time even further, because converting 8K stills to 4K rendering, oh, I mean, you're just like, okay, seconds, right? But those are the things that I'm using as workarounds for my hardware, is where I convert 8K video to stills and then use that for my talking headshots.
Yeah. So for those who say, who needs 8K, who uses it, it's one of those things. Once you've got it on your camera, eventually you're going to get to it. And once you use it, you're going to be like, wow. Now, I'm not going to use it all the time unless you're Stop the FOMO and you've got a good reason for it. But I definitely see the wow factor. It's like if you have contacts for years and years and then you get the surgery and you're like, wow, the world is different. It's kind of like that.
Well, we had this conversation. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was going to say that the reminding of the conversation we had off air, which was there are certain personalities where when you get this amazing equipment, you look for every excuse to use those features. And so on the one hand, a lot of people say, only get the equipment that's good enough for what you're doing, right? Like, if you're doing YouTube, you only need 4K and so forth, which that is an excellent point. But then the other side of it is, if you get an 8K camera, look for a reason to use the 8K. Push your production value so that the 8K becomes an essential part of your video, whatever it may be. So for me, I'm able to have a higher resolution comparison than any other TV reviewer because I'm pushing the 8K and downsampling to 4K, multiple TVs. And if you go on YouTube, you find that that's very difficult. It's rare to have multiple TVs compared head to head because of this limitation of resolution. You either get a very expensive camera and you do multiple shots, which is very time consuming, or you get an 8K camera and do one shot, which is very expensive, but you're pushing the limits of your production value. So my approach is I want to get the best equipment just because it's fun to get good equipment, right? That's what guys do. But then I look for every excuse to push my production value to take full advantage of that equipment, whatever it may be. So that's kind of my approach. It's an excuse to buy more expensive equipment, I know, but at least I get to use it. And if it wasn't for this YouTube channel, I probably wouldn't even buy a camera.
You know, I hear you. The reason I'm in this terrible set right now, and it's very poor, is I just turned on, for the next question, I turned on my Ninja, and you can see that it does have ProRes RAW as an option on the Ninja 5. And this has got the latest firmware on it, I believe. So it's codec is ProRes RAW, and the compression is ProRes RAW HG or ProRes RAW. So you definitely do have that option. Now I'm going to turn it up because it's not connected to my camera right now. I'm going to go back to a place that's better lit. Oh, I really love that Ninja 5. And guys, I'm not saying this because they're sponsoring me. They didn't really, honestly, they didn't tell me what to say. But I approached them and I said, look, guys, I'm constantly talking about the Ninja 5. I'm just impressed with how it helps me with my channel. And I would love to be able to be a sponsor for you if you were to give me a Ninja 5, because I'm always talking about it. And it's just truly amazing, like how much time I save by not having to transcode, by not having to even copy the file off storage onto an SSD. It's already there editable. So that's why I talk about it. So a lot of times when you hear me saying I love a product, I'm not being paid to say that. And you'll remember, if you go back to last week or the week before, I said I'd gotten a review from YOLO Box, and they sent me a package, and this was several months ago I started to do the review, but I had problems with the R5, R6, and I didn't publish it. But then I seemed like I was getting ghosted by the company, and I wasn't, but the person had got let go. I couldn't reach anybody. And they got back to me and said, yes, no, if you have an R5 or R6, it's to do with, I forgot with the protocol over HDMI, but if you use a simple HDMI splitter or pass-through, it solves the problem I was having. So once I get a new one, I'll talk about that. But I am honest. If something doesn't work well, I'm going to say it. And if it does work well, I'm going to say it, because my integrity matters an awful lot to me. And I'm not going to sell my soul for whatever I make off this channel. It's just not who I am.
I was going to say, hey, Simon, I just saw Jesse's comment. Is there a new Ninja coming out with 120 frames per second support? Because I'm going to get on that bandwagon.
Where's the comment here? Yes. And somebody asked me, hey, there's something coming out with Ninja. And normally they will send me a press release when something comes out. And I'm not sure, but you know, here's what I would like. And it'd be nice to do 120, but I don't really care. What I'd love to be able to do with a Ninja is get 8K output. That I would.
And wouldn't that be, now, I don't know about the bit rate, but 4K 120, it could do 8K then, right? I mean, is it a very similar bandwidth?
Well, here's the problem. So first of all, the R5 won't do it because it doesn't support HDMI 2.1.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But here's the other problem, assuming the Mark II does support it, or any camera. The standard SSDs that you put on the back won't work. You will essentially need an M.2 class flash storage, and that's not going to be cheap. So I would think at a minimum you would need like a Samsung Pro SSD or one of those M.2 ones. But
maybe it's possible with Alpha 1, because can't you record 8K onto a regular SD card on the Alpha 1? That means maybe the speed, it doesn't need that level of bandwidth. Maybe you could do it with a regular HDMI 2.0 on the Alpha 1. I'm saying maybe, you know, it's all in theory, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's based on bit rate. So the reason I use the Angel Bird is and they cost more, right? I'm going to go outside, and the reason I'm going outside, guys, I want to test to see if we have any dropped frames. My router's pretty close, but I want you guys to let me know if we have any issues, because I'm going to test this out, because I would like to do some live broadcasts using a laptop. Oh, it's cold.
Well, the good thing is you're on 720p, so you're less likely to get dropped frames. If you're at 1080p, that may result in a dropped frame, but you're on 720p, so it should be better or easier to maintain the stream.
Look at that dynamic range.
Oh, that's pretty impressive.
Oh my goodness. I'm not even using an expensive camera. This is from it. Okay, let's walk around the garden here.
Oh, just FYI, I have to leave in about 5 minutes.
No problem. Look, and if I'm mid-talking, just let me know. I appreciate, look, you stuck around for much longer than I expected. So thank you, Stop the FOMO. I do appreciate you showing up. Wow, I'm sorry. I'm stunned by this camera. I know it's 720, but if I went to 1080, what I'm looking at is the dynamic range and the color, sharpness, and brightness, and my exposure. It seems like a Sony camera. Are you hearing me?
I can hear you.
Okay, you went silent. I'm going like...
I know. I was like, wait.
Okay, I'm going inside. It is cold. It is cold. Coming back inside. And now you can see that there's not enough light. So I'm going to go back to where I was when I started this video. You know what I really love about using this little laptop is the flexibility I have to just move around. And of course, my wife has turned off all the lights. So Stop the FOMO. Since you've only got 5 minutes left, what I would like to do is give you the floor for the next minute or so. If you have any questions you want to ask, or if you like to make any statements.
Oh, well, I think we were talking about, hey, wow, you got a couple of super chats already. Look at your fans. And there you go.
I just noticed that too. Oh my goodness. Look, first of all, guys, thank you so much. You don't have to do this, but wow, I'm honored, that you donate some money to the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Randall. I appreciate that. And Nikan, thank you very much. €5. That's awesome. $4. Wow. Thank you. And again, guys, whenever I sell merchandise or anything, don't feel pressured you have to buy anything. When it comes to the affiliate links, don't feel pressured you have to buy those either. If you're going to buy through B&H and Amazon, certainly do so. But I strongly believe in supporting your local shops, your camera stores, especially in this day and age. But again, thank you so much. I do appreciate the super chats. It's humbling, isn't it? Stop the FOMO.
It is. When people actually say, hey, you're worth the £5 or the €5, it's like, wow, people value the live stream and get something out of it. It makes you feel like, you know what? It's worth, it's not so much the money, but it's like it has value to them. And it makes me feel special that it's bringing them value. But yeah, so we were talking about whatever it was we were talking before the live stream went. Oh, there was one on the live stream. We're going to talk about the growth of our channel and the difference between getting to where you are right now with 10 to 20,000 subscribers and where I'm hoping to be at in a few months, which is 100,000. Is the biggest difference is once you break 50,000, you start getting a lot. You have to juggle all the interests from companies who would like to endorse you, right? Whether it's sponsorships and whatnot. And it's hard to change your mindset because up to that point, you were so used to doing reviews for free, meaning in return for gear, you're going to do a review or whatever. But then moving forward, it's like you don't have any more time. You cannot take on those free exchanges because you have paying clients, paying customers, right? And that's where I find myself is I'm turning down more and more offers for gear in exchange for review because I'm backed up on reviews that are being compensated, which is great on the one hand. But on the other hand, it's like changing that mindset is very difficult. And the biggest difficulty is learning how much to charge because there is no rule. There is no context. It's not like, okay, an attorney charges $150 an hour. There's a certain level of market understanding, whereas here, it's not as transparent. Where do you go to charge? Isn't there a charging table? There isn't. And no one can help you because every market is different. Like your space is different. I know that in the financial space where people are giving financial advice, they charge the most for advertising because they're getting like $9 per view per 1,000 views, whereas other channels are getting $2 per 1,000 views. And so it's a context that's very difficult to get a hold of because there is no information out there. So I found that jump after 50,000 is when you start having to deal with that. So yeah, you're going to have a lot of fun with that.
Thank you. And again, thank you so much for spending 2 hours with me here today. I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for supporting the channel for I guess it's been over a year now, and your comments, your questions, which are great. And that question about the tripod that you asked me, I had to do a bit of research because I wasn't happy with the one I did myself, and I realized I hated recommending it because I remember I said in the video too, I said, I hate recommending something at this price, but if you want something that's going to work time and time again, and sure enough, look what I went and bought myself, the 504X. And you know what? Certain things you spend your money on and you'll never have to buy them again.
Never. I'm still using that tripod you recommended with the vertical crank. That was, I didn't even know that was a thing. And it turned out that was the only model that has it. Other companies don't have the vertical crank, and it was brilliant. So I got two, right? I got one for the TV and one for my talking head pieces because that vertical crank is so easy to adjust. I was sick of pulling out the tripod and then each individual leg. I mean, it's a nightmare. And then rebalancing everything again. That's 15 minutes out of my time where I could just vertically crank it. I was like, why doesn't everyone have this? So anyway, thank you, Simon, so much. Don't mind me. Continue your live stream. Good luck, and I'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks a lot. Stop the FOMO. We'll talk to you again soon.
Anytime.
Cheers. Well, guys, I'm going to keep going for another half an hour. I feel guilty leaving after a whole bunch of super chats. So I've calmed down a little bit. I still find it hilarious that I did this live stream to unlisted, and I couldn't figure out why nobody was joining. One thing I want to let you know on, I just got this in the mail the other day. You might be wondering what this is. This is an Artisan 21 millimeter f1.5. And so I was really super excited to review this one. But when they sent me the information, I thought, oh, that's getting me closer to 16 millimeters. So I got this yesterday while I was doing my gardening. I was fiddling with my tomato plants, and this unmarked van showed up, and I thought, am I in trouble? Nope. It was a FedEx guy coming out at one of their, they're so busy. It was one of their unmarked vans. And it was this Artisan lens. And I got to admit, I love the way it's built. It's very solid. But this is one of those lenses that's going to teach you a lot more about filmmaking. And this is not a review right now because I haven't done enough with it yet. But just my first impressions, it feels solid. It feels, there's a lot of metal components. And what isn't metal, it's kind of hard to tell if it is or not because it just feels so solid. And I use it as a comparison to this EFS 10 to 18 millimeter lens. This actually feels heavier because it's denser. It's a smaller footprint, but this is actually about 30 grams more. So this comes in at just around 499 grams, which is just over a pound. And you should see it on the R5. It looks funny. It looks like an elephant snout, but I took it out yesterday. I started playing around with a different vlogging with it. I tried mostly an f-stop of 16 because I didn't want to have to worry about focus. And of course I used focus peaking on the R5, and I had a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to take it out with a gimbal next time, because here's the thing. I'm going to take the lens off right now. And let's do this without getting dust in there. Let's see, use my glasses. There we go. That's what it looks like. I mean, it looks like an elephant snout, doesn't it? It's well constructed. They got little things like this, which is really handy here. So you can put in an ND filter, whereas otherwise you wouldn't through the lens there. But as I was saying, if you hold it out like this, it's enough strain on the arm that I would actually find that even though the gimbal's heavier, I can bring it in closer and it's easier on my arm. So I'm going to try the gimbal next time around, because I actually was quite a bit out of breath while I was filming with it. So that's something I'm covering up. So Tony just asked, what are we talking about? Or what, I just joined, what tripod are they talking about? So the tripod I was talking about is the Manfrotto 504X with aluminum tripod. Every bit of equipment that I use on my set, I've got a link in my new videos now, and B&H went ahead and built a page of all the equipment I use. So all my lenses, my camera bodies, my tripod, the memory that I use. So if you want to see what equipment I use all in one page with nice, easy pictures, it's usually somewhere in the 2 to 3 to 5 lines down on each video description. And that way you can see the exact level. Now the tripod I got, it's expensive. It's $825 US. But around Christmas time, Boxing Day, I picked it up for $300 off. So that was rather significant. So a lot of stuff that you don't see on sale right around Black Friday up until Christmas, you can see some really great deals. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments I missed. Let's see, Waytech asked, I have the R5. The issue I have is I wasn't able to play back 8K All-I 422 10-bit on any media player, but I'm fine with IPB. The first media player I would try that I use across platforms is VLC. VLC video. Make sure you search on that, because if you can find other stuff that's not right, it's VLC video. It's freeware, and I use it a lot. You could try to see if it works. That's probably what I would recommend. Let's see. What device do you use to watch it? Okay, DeWestel, you're going to have to give me a bit more information, because when you posted that question, I'm not sure what you're referring to. What device do I watch what on? My content that I produce? Actually, you know what? I'm going to act like a politician here and answer the question based on the way I think it was meant to be asked. I have a couple of TVs in my house, but the one I use for watching all the content out of my R5 is an LG 4K television. It's OLED, and I'm very impressed with it. What really impresses me is when you actually watch the credits and you see the really small typeface in white, and that doesn't bleed over into the blacks, and that's what I really like about it. So that's kind of what I use to watch most of my content. Unlike you guys who watch a lot of YouTube stuff, I don't watch so much of it anymore. I spend most of my time actually producing content for the channel. So when I do get a chance to watch, I'm usually watching on a TV, because I don't want something small. I want to sit back, I'm on the couch or I'm in my bed, and just watching on a nice big TV just seems to be a little bit more comfortable. All right, so here's what I'm thinking of doing. Starting next Saturday, probably around 7:30 in the morning, I'm going to do a live stream instead of the regular Ask Me Anything video. So what I'll do Monday or Tuesday, I'll go put out a call for questions that you guys want in the video, and I'm going to look at those. I'll research them, because quite often it's not just me pulling information that I know. I'm also having to validate what stuff I have in my head from 6 months old and research the information. And those will be the prioritized questions for the live stream. But I'll also be taking questions from you guys live as well, and I'll be interacting. So if I ask if I answer a question and you feel like I didn't properly answer it, or I missed a piece, we can have a bit of interaction. And what I would love to be able to do at some point is to be able to get to a point where I could actually invite you into the stream where you could actually ask your question, and we can maybe do a one-on-one, which I think might be really handy. So when I say 7:30 in the morning, to give you an idea, right now when I'm publishing my videos on Saturday morning, the AMA videos, the Ask Me Anything videos, they're done at 6 a.m. So it'd be about an hour and a half later, but you'd have a live stream. So let me know what you think of that. So far, from what I'm seeing with this one, where we didn't even schedule it, we've got 29 to 32 views. So it seems to be that there's a decent amount of interest. And here's the good news for me. I don't have to worry about spending a couple of hours editing after the video. So there's always that. All right. I'm starting to lose my voice. It's coming up to about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Do you guys have any other final questions before I close off this stream? Any question at all? I'm gonna have another sip of my nice tea. And yeah, just to remember, I'm using an M1 MacBook Air, 8 gigabytes. It's using the default camera and default microphone. And you're not even getting really good detail right now. I'm using StreamYard as the live stream engine, which I've got to say is very simple and easy to use. If you've used OBS, this is so much easier. I'd say this is even easier than Ecamm. But the free version only does 720p. Now, to get 1080, I have to pay, I think it's $50 US a month. And I wasn't really sure that I want to be doing this long enough, or if I was going to like it, to be able to pay them $50 a month. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try a few more of these videos at 720p. And if you guys like it, if it's successful, then I'll commit to the monthly fee of paying StreamYard, because I'm pretty impressed with this. Okay, question here. Do you put a screen protector on the R5 or any other camera? No, I really don't. You know what? The best screen protector I find is just to turn it around like this when it's not in use. And when I am using it, quite often it's out like this. I find that to actually damage the screen, you've got to be, you're walking around with it with the screen out like this when you're not shooting. The best way to protect the screen is just simply, when you're not using it, turn it around like this. I've been shooting with cameras for years and I've never once bothered with the screen protector. I've never had an issue that screams, I need a solution. Good to see you out in the pit. Out of the pit. Yeah. And I'd love to hear your feedback. Did you hear any noise when my son was running around, or my wife? Because again, I'm not using a professional microphone here. So this is all kind of new ground here. I'm trying something new with new technology. So yeah, oh, something else too. I really do hope I do get another YOLO, or their successor to the YOLO Live, because what I would love to be able to do is live stream remote in the wilderness of Canada, as long as there's a cell signal. Because I think that is a capability that very few live streaming software allows us to do. Now, I'm not sure how I would connect all of this in with that, but I think that would be something really, really exciting to try. So that's something I'm going to try to do. No, you're welcome. Look, without you guys, I wouldn't have a channel. So I do appreciate just commenting, watching. Believe it or not, that has a huge impact on my channel, has a huge impact on supporting me. When you tell your friends, that helps. Super chats are great too. When you purchase things through the affiliate links, I really do appreciate that. That helps an awful lot. Yeah. And when you got the Ninja 5, what did you notice about your workflow? How did it change? I'd like to get your feedback on that. Oh, expectations of the GH6. Look, it shouldn't be any surprise to anybody that Panasonic makes incredible cameras. No matter what price point you're buying into, and from the GH5 and above, Panasonic is one of those companies that gives you things like waveforms. It gives you a lot of features and functions that very few other camera companies give you, that you're almost having to look into, things like a Ninja 5. Whereas when you're shooting with Panasonic, you've got so much goodness baked in. So as far as the capabilities are involved, Panasonic's really good. And I think the GH6 isn't going to be any surprise here. But where I expect a big improvement in the GH6 is when you're shooting log, your shadows aren't going to be noisy. So right now, when you shoot in log with a GH5, you'll find that it's a little bit noisy in the shadows, which you can fix through denoising. But again, you're doing other processing and it's time consuming. Anything you have to do extra is something you have to remember. So that's something I expect to see on the GH6. And I expect other general improvements in speed. We'll have faster processors. It'll be able to do its job better. The only thing that's bugging me about Panasonic is not moving to a phase detect. Now, if you're doing a YouTube channel, you don't need that. You can do manual focus fine. Manual focus is perfectly suitable for a lot of use cases. But for a lot of ordinary filmmakers, a lot of moms and dads, brothers and sisters, where you want to go out and shoot, manual focus is something that's very difficult to learn, and not something that's, if you're buying your first camera, is probably not something you want to play around with. And I don't think, from what Yamane-san has said, that they're moving away from that. And while they keep tweaking it, to quote or paraphrase what Gerald Undone has said, the autofocus system, when it's set in auto, is still unreliable or untrustworthy enough that when you're in front of the camera, you don't want to be trusting it. So I really do hope that they can get the autofocus system better so it opens up more use cases. But I haven't heard much on the GH6. 2 months ago, I did put a video summarizing up the latest rumors. So you might want to go ahead and take a look at that. All right, where are we here? Do you think the iPad Pro with the M1 chip can... No. Yes. Okay, for me, no. I've looked at it. I looked at LumaFusion, and I think for some people, it's really great, maybe for the younger generation. But I'm an old fart. Look, I'm 50. I'm turning 51. I prefer a bigger screen. I like using a trackpad, and I got it. The touch screen on an iPad Pro is really good. But I just, this 13-inch MacBook Pro isn't big enough. I'm hoping the 16-inch will be big enough for me. I found the best editing experience has been on an iMac Pro with that 27-inch high-resolution 5K screen. So this is one of those questions where I need to put it back on you, Lincoln, and what are the capabilities you need? Would it be useful? The great thing about Apple is you can go into one of their stores and actually take some of your content, try it out, and see if it's workable for you. But for me, I haven't tried it, and I just get that sense that it's not something that would work for me. But the great thing about Apple is you can walk into the stores and try it out. So maybe give it a shot. Can you share your settings to avoid the R5 shutdown after a while if not recording internally? Only on the Ninja. Well, when I'm shooting my studio, it's anywhere from 60 to 70 degrees. I've never had it overheat, and I've recorded as long as I think 90 plus minutes. And I'm using 4K HQ all the time, all I. I can't remember where I'm using standard or neutral color profile. It doesn't really matter. When I'm out shooting outside and I'm doing a lot of my run and gun stuff, whenever I'm shooting outside, I'm using C-Log. So that puts more pressure on it. And I'm not using the Ninja usually in those cases. I usually keep the Ninja in the studio because I like to keep things light. And another thing, too, this is YouTube. 80% of my audience is watching on a small screen. So if I shoot 1080, only 20% is going to notice the difference. So if I'm shooting outside in 4K HQ and it looks like it's going to start to overheat, no problem. I take a break. I move it over to, I turn off high quality mode and I continue shooting. And you know what? I've had 2 people in my year and a half of shooting for the channel that have actually noticed the quality difference. So most of the times I always shoot in 4K HQ. I will shoot 8K all I as well. I did a video in February. It's just gorgeous. I shot it in 8K, did the studio in 8K, uploaded it in 8K, and it actually looks better. If you just have a 4K television and a good 4K television, it looks better than regular 4K HQ based on YouTube's, their compression. But here's what I noticed. The people who had really good TVs, like the latest TVs with OLED, they noticed a huge difference. People who had older televisions didn't notice much of a difference in 8K. So in terms of focus, I always use autofocus. Now, when there's a lot of precipitation, and it doesn't matter whether it's snow, rain, or things are falling from the trees, my R5 is a bit like a 9-year-old. It will go off and catch on those other things. Now, there are some settings in the camera that I can choose so that it takes longer for it to focus, which can help. But I usually don't bother. I want you guys to be able to see how it functions in certain situations. And also, if I'm shooting outside, normally I don't wear my glasses, but the screen's close enough. If I'm shooting outside and I've got a ball cap on and the sun's coming at me like this, my eyes are squinting like this, the R5 will have trouble. So in those situations, if your eyes are going to be really squinted down because you've got the sun in your face, use manual focus. All right. Waytech asked, I missed the information about your 22mm lens on the R5. No, I can't put the link in right now because, like I said, I just got this in the mail yesterday. You're going to hear some noises. My wife comes in the door. Let's just see how good this microphone is. So over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to keep shooting with this, and then I'll do a review of it. But I don't want to give out too much information right now. But it is the Artisan 21mm f1.5. Hello, Freddie. Good to see you joining in here as we get to the end of another show. We've got so many questions here. This is great. You are so comfortable doing a live stream, improved much from your earlier videos. Yes, well, I'm also with my friends, and I enjoy, this is my hobby. My sons, I can hear them now. So let me know how much you can hear. They know they're going to continue about their lives as normally. They're going to be a little quiet, but I want to see how good this microphone is. Yeah, you know what? I'd say the first 5 months allowed me to get used to looking through the camera. And even now I'm looking at the image and not directly into the camera. But the more you shoot, the more comfortable you get with it and the more fun it is. And what I've started doing is when I answer your questions, I actually picture you. I picture a real person, and that really helps with becoming a little bit more relaxed. You didn't hear any noise in the back. You must have heard something because they just opened the door. They walked through. My wife said, shh. My son walked upstairs. Tell me you heard something. Because, look, I'm going to turn this around. That's the wall over there is probably about 13 feet away. So there, you must have heard something. The microphone can't be that good. Oh, now you're getting to the good questions. R3 as a stopgap to the room at R1 or an actual okay. Sometimes, and I'm quite accurate with a lot of my predictions, and the reason is because I'm not trying to be smart. I look at Canon as an organization, and Canon as an organization, if you watch them over the years, they function in a certain way. It's like your wife, your child, your friend. You know what they're going to do in a certain situation. If something happens, you're like, oh no, I know what's going to happen here. It's the same with Canon. They're very consistent. So when they call the R5, or this camera, the R5, that told me that, well, it's a 5 series camera. They got a 5 in front of it. They're not going to change their naming. And sure enough, Canon did come out before they released it and said, this is a 5 series camera, so we can expect it to be a true successor to the 5D Mark IV. So when Canon came out and said, this is an R3, we know it's a 3 series camera. But we have to go back to about 2007 when they had the EOS 3. That's the last time we had a 3 series camera. Now, that by itself doesn't negate or mean that we're not getting an R1. Now, we have rumors of an R1. They're not very good. We don't have any information from Canon. We could still get an R1, and I believe we will still get an R1. And I believe that the R1 is going to be the direct successor to the 1DX Mark III. But here's the thing. If the R3 is that much of a jump, it might seem like it's the direct successor to the 1DX Mark III. I mean, look at this Canon R5. If you're not a Canon fan, or if you are a Canon fan, just go back to the EOS R and some of their previous cameras. We as Canon owners, we're frustrated with 4K with a 1.7 times crop, soft video, and you'd laugh going like, why are people buying Canon if you weren't a Canon fan? And so with the R5, not only did we do full sensor readout, we did 8K oversampled 4K, which is incredible. It did 8K RAW. They introduced IBIS, autofocus and IBIS in all video modes, and that was just the video capabilities. Oh, and by the way, here's C-Log 3 while we're at it. So the R5 is a huge jump above it, and it even went above the 1DX Mark III in some areas. It borrowed the same processor and sensor as the 1DX Mark III. If the R3 is that much of a jump, it will feel like it's a successor to the 1DX Mark III. And what you have to do as somebody who's considering buying the camera is, as always, use my capability list. What is it that you want from a camera? Because even if the R3 isn't a replacement for the 1DX Mark III, if it gives you what you need, well, that's really the most important thing. I'm really excited to see what comes out. These are, I mean, I'm stunned by what you can do in a camera body now, whether it's the R5 or the Alpha 1. I mean, let's go back 4 or 5 years and realize what we had then and what we have now. So I'm really excited to see what the R3 is going to be, and I'm always checking news, always watching Nakashita, Canon rumors, Sony, all of them. And I'm really excited. So as soon as I know more, I'll let you guys know more. So really, really good question. Yeah, that's a good question about the R3. I just lost it. Something about the R3 and face exposure. There's so many questions now, I'm losing track. But yes, I really hope it does. I don't think so. I mean, the R5, for me to nail the exposure, I've learned a couple of tricks. I've really learned how to shoot outside now. I'll quickly use the histogram to see where the lighting is. Then I'll adjust. And then I'll turn on waveforms. And right now I set it to 95%, so I can see if I'm starting to clip, and I will tone it down. But even the other day, I shot some snow. Everything checked out okay, and the snow is blown out. So with Canon, you've got to use a lot of skill as well. And I think using an Inda 5 outside would really help with the exposure as well, because now you've got false color, you've got some more tools, you've got waveforms and vector scopes. So that's really helpful. All right, let's see here. So talking about the audio then, I can hear it, but it sounds very static noises. Yeah, so this is using the camera and microphone from the M1 MacBook Pro to do this live stream, and I'm only doing it in 720. I think I'm going to be forced in a week or two to actually upgrade and pay the extra money so I can do 1080 for you guys. But if all you need now to do a live stream with decent quality is to get, you know, an M1 MacBook Pro, or sorry, MacBook Air, like the 7-core GPU, not the expensive one, I'm kind of gobsmacked. I'm pretty impressed with that and how that's working. So, and you heard the noise too. Yeah, I would expect you would hear some. I can't imagine they would put that good of a microphone in here that would be that good at completely removing the audio. But let me ask you this: was it distracting, or was it just, did it just feel like the audio was in the background? I'd like to hear from that. At what focal length do you shoot your video? Well, how long is a rope? For my channel, I'm always using this lens here. Oh, this is heavy. Shouldn't hold it with 3 fingers. Hold it like this. This is the Canon RF 50mm f1.2. This is what I use. I've been using a 50mm since I started this channel. And I started with the f1.8, realized it wasn't a silent STM motor. So then I put on my EF 1.2. And I'll be honest with you, I like the EF for shooting outside. The focus motor in it, it's a whole lot more quiet, or the stabilization is a whole lot more quiet in the EF version. But the sharpness in this is really good. If you were starting a channel and you wanted to choose between them, honestly, I'd start with a 1.8. It's a nifty 50. You can get them for $100. They're not expensive. Just, you know, put a microphone on you like a Tascam, like I do for the studio. So that way focus motor noises aren't a problem. So yeah, for my outdoor videos, again, I'm loving this lens. I will often use this when I'm shooting my son. We're doing all sorts of stuff. I use this lens a majority of the time. But when I travel, the lens that I take with me is the 24-105 f4. I find it's a great general purpose lens. It doesn't give me that bokeh nearly as good. But, you know, if it gets broken or stolen, you know, it's $1,000 versus $3,000. So, excuse me, Canadian, that is. Yeah, well, it's about, this is a pilot for me today. I can't believe I'm up to 45 viewers already. This is a pilot for me. I'm trying things out. And I've told my wife and son, you know, go about your day as normal. I don't want to be interrupted. Sorry, not interrupted. I don't want to interrupt their way of going about their day because it's Sunday. And then I can take the feedback and then I can figure out how I want to shoot next week's AMA. Do I want to shoot outside? Do I want to shoot in my studio or someplace like where I am right here? All right. Oh no, look, Canon, Hinkler, I appreciate you watching my channel and participating. So thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would expect you to hear something good. Awesome. No, I don't have eco mode on. Actually, I want to do a shout out to Tony Northrup. He did a video just a few days ago on the R5, and basically one of those 1 hour where he goes through everything. And you know what? After about half an hour, I'm going like, oh my God, why on earth didn't I do that? And this is where he said in photo mode, he'll set up like C1 as everything for portraits and C2 for other photography, like doing, you know, an ISO or a shutter speed of 2000 for fast action. And I asked myself, why on earth didn't I do that for photos? Because I'm the ordinary filmmaker, but still, you know, why wouldn't I set that stuff up? So I thought his video was really good. He talked about turning eco mode on. when I'm shooting in my studio, I don't care because I use a dummy battery. And when I'm shooting outside, I usually just take another battery with me. And even in manual mode, I turn auto off to disable because I want it ready to go. I'll turn it off if I'm done with it. I just find that with new batteries, if you use the batteries supplied by Canon, battery life is good. And I've got 3 of them. So I will, if I think it's going to be a long shoot, I'll take 2 of them with me. And I just never seem to have an issue with that. So, but I'll say one thing too. I've also bought the Power Edge batteries. I think they're Power Edge or Power Save. I got them in the link below. I've used them in the past. And if you're not doing a YouTube channel, you're taking your camera out a couple of times, then yeah, they're worth it. They won't last as long as the Canon batteries, but you know, I've had them last me years. And when you're looking at $90 or $80 for a battery versus $10 or $11, you know, get a bunch of those $10 or $11 ones and they're going to serve you fine. Again, keep a few of them with you. But if you're doing some serious stuff, if you're a professional, you know, get the Canon ones. They're going to last you longer. They just are. And that's another thing too. Use your custom mode. So maybe you do want to have your out and about mode and you want to turn encode on. You want it to go turn off the screen after 15 seconds. My in-studio mode, what I do is I don't turn the camera off. I turn that to disable, but I turn the LCD off after about 30 seconds because it's just not needed. I cannot see it behind my Glide Gear teleprompter, so there's no sense for it. I've been going through the menu. Yeah, watch Tony Northrup's video. It's pretty good. I don't do those videos because I find that, as Tony said, they are an awful lot of work. And they're just, I'm small enough that I don't get enough views from them to justify the time to put in them. So take a look at his video. He goes through all the menu settings, and I think it's pretty good. And that's in response to this one here, not really distracting. And that's what I was hoping for, because then I don't have to worry about trying to adapt because I could take my Tascam mic and stick it into the back of the computer. I can try other things, right? But I'm doing live stream without any additional costs here. I just took my M1 MacBook Air using a free StreamYard account, and that's pretty powerful. So not expensive like it was a year ago. Oh, I already did that one there. Audio was in the background and not distracted when people came in. And now she's baking in the kitchen, pots and pans. I'm pretty impressed with this. And this is really good news for me too, because let's say Canon just comes out with the R3. I could choose to do a live. Hey, here's my coverage of the R3. And my family can go about their lives as normally. And so I think this might be a way of doing more videos this way. Okay, so how the dummy battery assists with shooting. It serves one purpose: uninterrupted power. That's really it. It's a Canon. It's 2 products from Canon. It's the extension cord and it's I forgot what they call it. Canon has a name for it, but essentially it comes from Canon. It plugs into the power, plugs into the mains, and I can shoot without having to worry about power dropping. The Ninja allows me to shoot indefinitely without having to worry about the 30-minute record limit or overheating. So I get indefinite shooting is what it gives me. It's part of that package. Wow, thanks for coming. Thanks for showing up. I really appreciate you dropping in here. I'm actually coming to the end of another session here, so I'm probably going to close out in about 8 minutes. So thanks for dropping by, buddy. Yes, Brian. And last one down here, we live out in the bush, no access to stores. My camera has recently died. I've been offered a Nikon Coolpix 8800 for next to nothing. Is it modern enough to use? Well, what do you want to do? Here's the thing. I had the Canon 70D for 6-7 years. Here's what I recorded before I started the channel. What I recorded an awful lot of was my son. I was lucky that when I bought a camera, the 70D, it was state-of-the-art at the time. It had dual pixel autofocus. It was the first camera that really gave you really accurate, reliable autofocus. And for years, I shot in auto mode, and I got great results. I didn't know any better, but the camera allowed me to do that. And I captured my son being born. I captured him growing up. So a lot of my personal stuff is capturing at least several moments a month and then putting them into a montage that becomes the year that was 2021. And these are often anywhere from 60 minutes to a full-length movie of about, almost 2 hours long. And the 70D, I pushed that camera to its limits. And one thing I realized I wanted, what capabilities I wanted in a new camera. I wonder if I can do this here. Let's see if I can do a mind map. Oh, this computer doesn't have mind map software on it. I'll get that ready for the next time. I love mind mapping. But what I wanted is I wanted detailed 1080 and I wanted detailed 4K because I found that the 70D was being soft. When I shot certain scenes, it didn't capture the detail. And what 4K, really detailed 4K does, especially when you get in close with a 50 millimeter, it's like the person is right there. And when you become old, you become in your 60s and your 70s and you're watching your kids grow up, and you can go back to that video and see how sharp it is. That's the huge value that it provides. So I wanted 4K, I wanted detailed. And there's a lot of things that go into a detailed 4K. You need to have a good fast sensor so you don't get soft 4K. You need a good fast processor because you want your autofocus system to work. You want so many things going for you. And I found that all the cameras out at the time didn't give me that. Now, if you just want really good 1080, that's a different story. But you've got to come up with a list of what capabilities you think are important, and then ask yourself, how well does this Nikon Coolpix 8800 fit in? And if you're getting it for next to nothing, well, then maybe it might be good enough for you, but you've got to do that because I can't tell you. I've never met you before. So I don't know what you're looking for, and I would almost have to have a conversation with you. And like I said, for $50 US an hour, I do 1 hour consultations. If you look at the links down below for all my latest videos, but maybe give me a more detailed question, give me some more background, and I can answer this next week in my AMA video where I do a live show. So I can probably give you more information then. All right, I have a question, Maro. I have the Z6 Mark II, 24-70 f4S. What should I buy, 70-200 f2 or the 24-70 f2.8? Okay, so same question, right? What do you want to shoot? I'm going to tell you what lenses I shoot with. I already told you I use the 50 millimeter an awful lot. I really love that prime. And here's something I don't see you talking about is primes. And what a prime forces you to do, it forces you to frame the subject by moving to it. You have to think differently than you do with a zoom. A zoom, sometimes we cheap out and we just move it. And even though right on the top of the lens, like this lens here, this cheap lens, I can shoot in 50 millimeters all the time, but you don't think that way, right? So maybe consider a prime. What other lens do the 20-40-105, I don't use as much as I thought I would. I'm going to be getting the 100 millimeter macro because that opens up a whole world. I have the 800 millimeter that allows me to do wildlife and astro. Well, when I say astrophotography, I'm talking about the moon, the planets, Saturn. And I think that's wonderful. There are people who swear by the 70-200. It's a great range. But if you have the 70-200, then obviously you need something that gives you that wide, because you're not going to be wide at 70-200, right? So what use cases are you doing? Because when you're shooting right around, you're doing, let's say on a full frame sensor, you're doing 10 millimeters up to about 16 millimeters. You jump into that fisheye range, you're going to be dealing with slightly different lenses. Like you can see the curved glass here, it's a lot more curved. Once you start getting from about 16 to 24, you're doing, this is for landscapes. You're shooting the entire scene really, really wide. But then once you start getting above, let's say 30 and 40, you can still do it wide enough for like family stuff. So anything from like a 24-105, 24-135, anything like that is a great general purpose lens. It's a compromise. Everything we do in cinematography or in photography is a compromise. So what I need to hear more, Mao, is what are you trying to accomplish? And then I can give you the right recipe, whether it's what embodiments you need, whether you need a 70-200, whether you need an f2.8, stuff like that, right? And even if you're shooting outside, an f2.8 is very valuable. You'll probably want to put some ND filters on there, but how you can separate your subject from the background, that's powerful. So great question. Greetings from Wisconsin. Well, thank you for tuning in, and you're welcome. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to do this question live because I get this asked all the time. Is there going to be an RP Mark II and an EOS R Mark II? I'm going to answer both. So first of all, the R6 is essentially the EOS R Mark II. I mean, look at it. The price difference between the two cameras is negligible. It's what you would account for inflation. So I really do see the R6 as a successor to the EOS R. And you got to look at the EOS R. Yes, it's cheap now, but when it came out, that was an expensive camera. But here's the plans that Canon's got, according to Canon Rumors, and Craig does a very good job of posting accurate stuff. He doesn't usually go with stuff that's not validated, or if he does, he says so. He'll call it a CR0. And what he said is that Canon's going to be coming out with a replacement for the EOS RP called, and we don't know what it's going to be called, but its whole purpose is to be low price. It's going to be like the M6 Mark II. You're probably not going to have an EVF that you can buy one and attach it, but to keep the cost down, to have a list price for around $899 US based on last year. Who knows with COVID and everything if that's going to change or not, but it's going to be a low price camera. It's going to be budget. It's going to be an entry-level full-frame camera, which I think Canon does better than most, is to offer a full-frame camera that cheap. The only question is, right now the RP is a great stills camera, not so much on a video camera. It's rather limited. I would go with something like the Canon 90D over the EOS RP. But if you're a photographer, pretty good. There's also rumor of a camera that's going to sit between the RP and the R6. And it's going to be mid-priced and mid-capable. So who knows, maybe around $1,800, $1,700, no, $1,699. And I don't know, is it going to do crop video? Are they going to bring that back? With these two cameras, the reason why I don't call them, the actual successor like a Mark II is I did an interview with Craig at Canon Rumors a year ago, and I asked him about that, and he said, no, they're one-off cameras. The RP and the R are one-off cameras. It was Canon's rushing attempt to get out to the market, to let the market know they were serious about full-frame mirrorless cameras. Because prior to that date, the only mirrorless cameras they had were APS-C. Sony had the market, Panasonic. There was nothing from Canon. So what Canon decided to do is, by just releasing the EOS R, first of all, they told the market, we're here. We're serious about moving to mirrorless full frame. Then they came up with the RP to say, look, we're going to have multiple models. It's going to be affordable entry level. So we're waiting. Second half, I think we're going to get a lot. It's really hard to predict right now. You guys know what's going on in the world. You know what's happening right now. It's having a major impact, and anything we say today might be accurate, but tomorrow that news could change, right? We're supposed to have a lot more cameras out by now. Some conversations going on with everyone. Thank you. Look, Gino, I really appreciate you tuning in, and everybody too, that you've been loyal to me. You keep watching my videos. It really helps me grow, so I do appreciate that. And Jose, thank you very much for showing up, Jose. And we also have Jay. Hello, Yes, so I don't know how long it takes, but once the live stream's over, it's available. Then I'll go ahead and publish it. I'll put in some tags. I'll put in a thumbnail. So yes, it will be available to watch afterwards. And on that note, I'm not going to be taking any more questions, so don't sneak in any super chats as an attempt to try to get me to stay longer. I've been shooting for about 3 hours now, and now I'm going to spend the rest of the day with my family and enjoy everything out there. But thanks so much, guys, for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. Don't forget, I got 2 contests right now. By just being a subscriber, you can win 2 Angelbird not CF Express cards, 128 gig V90 cards, as well as a Ulanzi LED light package. I got the details in the description, but I just started a new challenge today. Take a look at that video. Jordan Drake is going to be the one to select the winner. He's in the video, and I'm going to be giving away a Xiong gimbal, which Weeble S, I was going to say the Crane 2, the Weeble S gimbal, along with an Ordinary Filmmaker baseball cap to the winner. He's going to select. I'm going to narrow down the 5 finalists, and every one of those 5 finalists will get an Ordinary Filmmaker baseball cap. So go ahead and watch that video. It's going to be an exciting challenge, and it's all about the night. But that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. We'll see you again soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye. Let's see how long does it take to end the broadcast. You gotta click a couple of buttons. It'd be nice if it had it fast. You can click it and then you're gone. Anyhow, guys, here we go. Thanks for watching.